Hi everybody, my name is Gerry, I'm from Wild Eye, and this is episode 8 of the Wild Eye Diaries. Now, from this episode moving forward, things are changing a little bit. So instead of me telling you I'm hosting this episode, so instead of me telling you about it, here's the insert that I shot for this episode. Hey everybody, so I put my insert first this week because we're changing things up for the diaries. In the past, we've had 7 episodes now, and each of the guys have had a chance to host. The diaries was also every 2 weeks. From this week, we're going to be doing a weekly episode of the Wild Eye Diaries, and each Wild Eye guide will have his own segment every single episode. The idea behind it is there is so much happening in the office, there is so much trips happening, there's so much content we can produce that it's nice for each guy to have the creativity and kind of the freedom to create whatever content they want for that specific episode of the diaries. It could be, if I'm in the field, it could be a WhatsApp video that I send back to the office, 20 seconds worth, just saying, hi everybody, I'm in the field, it's very cold in Svalbard, but it's amazing, I'll see you next week. That could be my insert. Or, like some of the stuff you'll be seeing today in this episode, Marlon talking about an episode they have in Monopools, Trevor sharing some details on lens calibration, Al sharing some details from the field. It could be anything, but it'll all be relevant to wildlife photography and what we do. Now, more than that, and this is going to be cool, is after the fact, after the diaries have gone live every week, we're going to be taking the content for each guide, stripping it off, and creating a playlist for every one of the Wild Eye guides on the YouTube channel so that you can go and consume the content based on guides, based on content, based on Lightroom, based on theme, whatever it is. So we're going to make it easier for you to find the content that adds value to you. We're very excited about it, and I think it's going to be an interesting episode going forward. The nice thing for us, I mean, it's for you guys, but for us is sitting back at the end of the year, looking through the diaries and just seeing what we've seen, if that makes sense. So enjoy this first episode. It's going to be a great one, and we will be seeing you every week from now on a Friday. If you have questions, you know what to do. My email's at the bottom here. Otherwise, chat to you soon. Okay, so there you go. From now on, each of the guides will have a segment every single week. Lots of content, very exciting. So to get us going this week, Trevor has recorded a little bit of his Instagram story where he showed you how to calibrate your lenses. Check this out.
Hello everyone, so a couple weeks back I put a story on my Instagram revolving around calibration of your camera gear. I did get quite a bit of engagement from it, and so what I thought I would do is just take those video clips off my phone and create a short video for you demonstrating on how you can use a lens calibration kit like the Spider calibration kit I used without sending your camera gear in to be serviced or calibrated, which will either cost a lot of money or take a lot of time, or both. So check out the video and enjoy the demonstration. We've got the tripod set up, calibration kit. I was busy doing the camera, and for this exercise we're going to be using a 5D with a fixed 300 lens. Okay, so what I've done is I've set up, you can see through live view, my settings. I'm at 2.8 shallow depth of field just to reflect on the calibration kit. The one thing to remember, vitally important whenever using a tripod, not just for calibrating but doing photography, is to switch your image stabilizer off just to avoid any kind of shake. You'll also notice that I've set the lens about 3 to 5 times the length of the lens just for the best results. So this being a fixed 300, we had about 1.5 meters. And now looking at the calibration kit, so not having a remote on the camera, I've set a 2-second timer. My focal point is going to be in the middle of these 4 squares, and we're going to look for the results on the scale here. You'll see that it's set at a 45-degree angle. So looking at the kit here, in the ideal world, we want the focus to be on the 0. It may be back focusing or focusing forward, but this will all give us an indication of where exactly the lens and the camera body is finding its sharpest focus. Okay, so it's quite difficult to see in this picture, but The 0 is in focus, but it is also focusing slightly forward. So now we've got to go into the camera and make the minor adjustment to the lens. Now just remember, I'm using Canon as an example here. So in the Canon menu, you can go to AF, into the AF menu, and find AF micro adjustment. And then you will see it brings up adjust by lens or all by the same amount. So I prefer just to adjust by lens, just because all the lenses are different and may not need the same manipulation. So because it was focusing slightly forward, I'm going to make that small adjustment within the camera and see what happens. So once you click OK, you'll see a menu like this, and depending on whether your camera is focusing in front or behind the object, will determine which way you're going to go. So let's just see what happens. Because it's focusing forward, I'm going to move my focus back. And the result that you'll see now is that the focus is pretty much pinpoint. I may have to move it just one more. I was on +3, I may go to +4, but just a small minor adjustment and the focus is back. So as you can see, I've moved it from my last mark, the blue mark being my last mark, to one more forward, just to get pinpoint accuracy and just to make sure I'll take another test shot. And there you have it. It's as easy as that. Small adjustments. You may want to do this to all your lenses, just to be sure that you are achieving pinpoint sharpness. So there you have it. It's quick and easy. Like I said in the video, I would recommend that you do it with all your camera bodies and lenses. If you have any further questions regarding the calibration kit or how to calibrate your camera and lenses, drop me a mail. I'll leave my email address here, and I'll gladly assist you where I can. But for now, cheers.
All right. In this next segment, Al shares some of the sightings he had now recently while hosting a private safari at Mjejane, and some sightings, some of the lodge. It's a destination we're looking at. He had a great time. If you follow him on Instagram, you'll know what he saw there. Go and check this out. Okay, so then Mike has just returned from the Big Cats and Tuskers variation. This is a trip I hosted for about 5 years. It used to be Masamara, Lake Nakuru, Lake Naivasha, and Amboseli. This is the first spin-off version thereof. It's the essential Amboseli and Lake Nakuru trip. Mike just hosted the trip now. He's just returned to the office today, actually. Check out a bit from him, what he shared from the field.
Hey there guys, so yeah, in Lake Nakuru, and it's been a spectacular safari this far, and yeah, we spent 5 nights in the Amboseli with Jimmy and 4 nights here in Lake Nakuru with that man trying to look smart running away with his jacket.
Yeah. Hello
Sammy.
everyone, hi, how are you? We're in Lake Nakuru now. Here we're having a breakfast and
Coffee stop over here.
Yeah, stop over the bathrooms here.
There's a
Yeah,
restroom in front.
yeah.
Tell everyone a bit more about Lake Nakuru, what we can
Lake
see,
Nakuru.
what people can see here.
Lake Nakuru here we can see rhinos,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of zebras and other game animals, and also we have got good viewing along the lake, and also we have a chance to see the Macalia Falls, which is now growing big.
Nice.
So those are the highlights here in Lake Nakuru National
And what
Park.
was your highlight of this safari this far? What did we see on day one?
Day one we saw a lion on the climbing of the tree. That was magnificent. It was very nice.
Very
It
cool.
was very cool, yeah.
Oh, we've had fun, eh?
Yeah, I had fun.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Okay.
It's been amazing. Sammy,
Thanks,
until
mate.
next time. Until next year, April, eh?
Okay. See you.
We'll host the safari together in April again next year.
Yeah.
2019.
Sure. All right.
Sweet.
Cheers.
Cool. Cheers, guys.
All right. Bye.
Cool, guys. So that's just a little bit more about Lake Nakuru, a very, very special destination, and a destination that always provides. And when you come and photograph here, it is truly all about the background. The fever tree thickets or the fever tree forest surrounding the lake out here is just magnificent, particularly when it comes to your photography. But if you've been wondering a little bit more about what the Amboseli is all about, it is all about the elephant. If you're an elephant lover, Amboseli is the place for you. We had spectacular game viewing there this past safari, and in all honesty, I've never seen a herd of elephant that big. We tried to count, but probably 250 to 300 elephants in this particular herd, a double rainbow. So yeah, it was a magnificent experience. But when it comes to the big cats as well, there are a lot of good lion sightings in the Amboseli, a lot of good cheetah sightings in the Amboseli, and seeing that it's such a diverse area with fever tree thickets, flat open grassland areas, the marshy areas, it is an iconic and also quite an easy place to photograph, because you usually don't have many distracting elements in the frame. So yeah, spectacular destination, a lot of good diversity in terms of wildlife and vegetation, and of course Mount Kilimanjaro is one always wants to see when you go to the Amboseli, and again this time we were very blessed to have seen it every single day on the safari there. But coming up next is a couple of highlights of what we got to experience in this past couple of nights, 9-night safari, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Catch you all later. This is unreal. Watch him in the water, yeah.
Those are twins.
Okay, lots of stuff happening in the field, always exciting. Now, Johan's taken his insert this week and he's kind of taken things back to tell you who Johan is, where his journey started, and just a little bit more about our staff member in Nelspruit. Here we go.
Hello everyone, my name is Johan, and in this episode of the Wild Eye Diaries I wanted to share a little bit more about how personally I got into the safari industry and doing what I'm doing now with Wild Eye. And it's a question we get asked a lot when on safari, is what sort of made you get into this and how did you do it? To start off, I think for me, I'm based in Nelspruit, where I currently live, and grew up here, which is close to the Kruger National Park. And as a kid we would go to Kruger quite regularly, almost like every second weekend. So naturally the love for animals and wildlife started at a very early age, but it was only really sort of from the age of about 11 when my parents moved to Uganda that making a living out of guiding really became a possibility for me. I remember going to go and see the gorillas as a young kid, seeing the lodge side of things, and that's when I really decided this is what I want to do. Fast track, sort of after school, I then did my field guide training at a campus called Ulavani, which it's in the Eastern Cape, sort of southeastern part of South Africa. And think of it basically as a university or a college, but in the bush. So we stayed in the bush. It's a year course, 6 months of it being theory, and then the 6 months you get practically placed at one of the lodges. This was a fantastic sort of ground set for me to start off my guiding, learning everything from grasses, geology, tracks, animal behavior. There's about 18 subjects, so a lot of things to take in. And a typical day would be sort of a morning activity, either a walk or a game drive, and then you'll have lectures during the day, and depending what subject you cover, you will then maybe do an activity again in the afternoon. So this was an unbelievable experience. The guys that mentored us were unbelievable, and I'd highly recommend, if you're looking at sort of going into the guiding industry, to definitely do a course like this. It's definitely worth it. So from there I worked at the reserve for about 2.5 years, and then moved over to Mjejane Game Reserve. Now if you've been following Wild Eye, you'll see that we still do photographic safaris in Mjejane, and this is a reserve that really has a very special place in my heart. I was there for about 5 years, loved every minute of it. It helped me grow as a guide. But I then wanted to go and experience the back room side of things, if you can call it that, the managing of the camps, how they run, managing the staff. So my wife and I then moved to Zambia, where we managed the camp in the Lower Zambezi, and from there we then moved to Botswana, which was our last camp and probably my favorite that we managed, in the Lanyanti, a camp called Dumatau. Beautiful location, and we were there for about 2 years before we then expected our first child. Now probably one of the downsides of the safari industry is there are not many places where you can raise a family. There are a few, but not many. So we decided then to move back to South Africa, back to Nelspruit, and it was quite a difficult part, to be honest, because it was a bit of freelance guiding. It's great when you have business, but you never really knew what was coming in the next week or the next month. And eventually, sort of after doing that for about a year and a half, I then approached Gerry and Andrew, who I met in Mjejane, to see if there's a possibility of joining the Wild Eye team. Dream job, I know, and luckily for me, they were looking for a guide, and here I am today. Very fortunate. It's about 2.5 years later with Wild Eye, and I've been fortunate to experience some unbelievable destinations, including places like Mana Pools, South Luangwa, our camp in the Masai Mara, which is unbelievable. And then as of next year, I'll be doing India, which is an incredible safari, something that I'm very much looking forward to. And just experiencing something out of Africa, which should be very exciting. Looking at the trip that Marlon did, which is Wild Eye's first one beginning this year, it's definitely a destination to look out for, and one that I'm very excited about. So that's my story in a nutshell. If you guys would ever like to know more about the guiding side of things, or if you have any questions of how to get into the industry, please give me a shout. I'd love to hear from you guys and happily answer your questions. Hope you guys enjoy this episode of the Diaries. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Okay, now as you see moving forward, these inserts could be literally anything. What Marlon shares today in his insert is a little adventure they had when he was in Mana Pools and they couldn't actually get out because of too much rain. I can down the line tell you what happened in the office when we got the calls having to change flights, but here's Marlon's story from Mana Pools.
Hey guys, my name is Marlon and I wanted to share a cool story with you guys. Something that happened in Mana Pools last year in October. As a company, we've been going to Mana Pools for the last, probably the last 5 years. And my first visit was in 2012. And I've never really experienced a lot of rain there. We try and go during the dry season, the peak of which is at the late October, usually into November. Last year in October though, the night before our day of departure, it started raining. Okay, now when I say rain, I mean it was really raining. I woke up and went around my tent, and all I could see at my feet was water. Okay, my tent was flooded. During the night, the wind had ripped the top of my tent off, and it just started leaking. The problem with these things, so I love the rain. It's fantastic to be there for the first rains. The problem was it came on our last day, which to me means a logistical nightmare, because I had guests on international flights back home that evening, or the evening the next day. So here I was at like 1 o'clock in the morning, scooping water out of my tent, and it did not stop raining. It just kept going and going and going. I eventually went up to the main area at about 4 or 5 o'clock. Even that was ruined. The tents were sunken. Tent pegs were the actual legs supporting the structures was broken. There was water everywhere. Areas that had been dry, bone dry, was turned into something resembling a lake. Unbelievable amount of rain. I still clearly remember Kevin, who's a good friend of mine, and also the guy who looks after us in Mana, our local guide. The two of us just looked at what was going on around us. I remember for a while just sitting down and waiting. Now again, I say I love Africa. I'm so happy that it rained while we were there and getting to see the change in the landscape and the amount of water, but I had to get guests out of there. So we spent the morning kind of just waiting. We try to get reports, weather updates. You know, in Mana Pools, we don't have much connectivity. Very cut off, very isolated. So we're trying to do the best with what we had. Cell phones, a little bit of that, a little bit of satellite phone. Basically we weren't going anywhere. Like, we were pretty much gonna stay there for the day. The problem being, the one issue is getting to the road, or to the airstrip, the airport. The roads were completely, you could not get a car through there. It was so muddy, and the mud in Mana Pools, it's basically a big floodplain, so the mud just goes soggy and mucky, and that was the one issue. The second issue was the gravel runway. There was so much rain that there was a chance that the runway had been compromised. So we had a couple of tasks. One was just to wait it out, keep the guests happy, which we did. I think everybody had an enjoyable time in the end and understood, you know, this is nature. There's nothing you can do about it. And in the end, at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we had to go and check the runway to make sure that we could get a plane in the next day, because this day was done. We were going to spend the day there. So a group of us went out, and this was an adventure in itself. we had a lot of fun. Myself, the driver, was the owner of the camp, Dave, and then in the back I had Kevin, and then behind me was Graham, one of my guests, Graham Wood, great guy. And so we were tasked with trying to make it to the runway, probably about 20 kilometers from camp, checking the condition of the runway and making it back without getting stuck, of course.
Go, 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 go!
It's not good. Tree.
This is where they had the landmine. Put a landmine
on. It was a blast. Like, we had a good time. So we ended up getting to the runway. Adventure on the way. I mean, we found along the way a lion that had killed an eland. So there was an eland carcass right next to the road, male lion there. Almost hit a tree. Almost got stuck quite a few times. Luckily, Dave knew what he was doing. We made it to the runway. The runway was soft but fine. If it stopped raining that evening, and it had the night and a bit of the next morning to dry, I think it would have been fine. And our suspicions in the end was correct. So, long story short, made it back to camp, had a lovely evening in camp. It stopped raining at about 8 o'clock. I think we had about 200 millimeters of rain that day in Monopause. Unbelievable. And so we spent the night. The next morning, our flight out was just after 9. So we left camp at about 7, hit the road. Can you believe it? Like, we were so happy that we were going to make it out. So my guests were happy that their flights rescheduled, all the things were in place. Just probably about 5 or 6 kilometers before we got to the airstrip, there's a little bridge. Now, the night before there was water we could cross. Today, there was a lot of water. And an entire tree had washed over this road. I kid you not. An entire tree had literally blocked our path. Our one and only way of getting to the damn airstrip was blocked by a massive fig tree.
So we got stuck in Monopause yesterday, couldn't get out. Kev, today we finally managed to get a flight in, but we have a small situation. Have a look at that.
Push what side?
Yeah. There's a log blocking our route to the airstrip. Unbelievable. And he's laughing.
Okay. So we had an hour and a half or so to catch our plane. We tried everything. Eventually more guys started arriving. The parks board guys arrived. We tried to chop that tree in half. We tried to move it. We tried everything. It was too dangerous to move with the car, because if there was more of the tree that then washed over the bridge, maybe the car could have gone along with it, especially if the car was tied to the tree, which makes sense. Unbelievable luck. Somebody arrived on the other side of the river, another camp, African bush camps. They have a camp in the woodland on that side of the river, and a camp on the floodplain on our side. They were coming to fetch guests and to drop guests off. So we hustled across, and we asked them if they could just give us a lift to the airstrip. So in the end, they agreed. So we took all our bags, took it all across the water, walked the guests across one by one, all the bags across, eventually got on a vehicle there, went off to the runway and got our plane and got out of there. But what an adventure that was, guys. And again, there's for you watching, whether you've been on safari or not, if you have, you'll know that it's always an adventure. If you haven't, you yet to experience it. But the best is just to take it in your stride. Don't let, if something like that happens, you miss your flight, it's Africa. It's out of your control. And that's exactly what it was for us, you know. There's nothing that we could have done about it. It's something my guests will never forget. It's something I remember, and, you know, half a year later, talk about it and share it with you guys. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, great experience. Everyone made it okay. And Mana's looking great and green at the moment. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little insert, and we'll sure be back with some more fun stories from Safari. Thanks, guys. My name is Marlon. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Okay, Andrew recently attended a documentary screening called The Vanishing Kings, and in this episode, in his insert, he shares some details on that, the book, Namibia. So here's Andrew with a bit of a discussion around the documentary that he went to kind of watch, and his thoughts on that.
Hi guys, not a hell of a lot been going on in the last couple of weeks. Same old business side of things, admin, keeping busy. What we did do last week is that Lara, Alistair and myself attended the premiere of a documentary called Vanishing Kings 2. Now you may or may not have heard of Vanishing Kings 1, and I suppose that's a good place to start. But essentially it's a documentary which outlines and traces the lives of 5 young male lions born in the northern Namib, so around the Honib region. And if you know anything about that area, it is a massive tract of land with very little in terms of resources, and probably one of the last places that you'd expect to find animals like lions and elephants. And Vanishing Kings 1 basically traces the lives of these 5 young male lions from the moment they're born as cubs all the way through to subadults and when they start to disperse. And Vanishing Kings 2, without giving too much away, is the follow-on from this, obviously. But it kind of updates you as to what has happened in that area. And it was a great opportunity to, number one, see and be a part of the premiere of this follow-up documentary, but also at the same time to be there for the launch of this book. It's called Vanishing Kings, Lions of the Namib Desert, and it's by Philip Stander and the filmmakers Will and Leanne Steenkamp. Now, anyone who is in the wildlife research and conservation side of things or knows anything about these desert-adapted lions knows that Dr. Philip Stander is synonymous with them. He pretty much discovered a remote pride a number of years ago, has been involved in conservation activities in Namibia for years and years, and is probably the epitome of a dedicated conservation biologist. Spends most of his life out in a vehicle following these lions around, and followed the 5 musketeers for their entire lives as well, documenting it. So this book, which for me last week, first of all, to meet Philip Stander was just an incredible privilege. I remember hearing about him in my undergrad studies and some of the work that he was doing up there. So to meet him was great. But what I really love about this book, and I'm going to be doing a bit of a book review on it in the new week, but is that, the wealth of information that's contained in here usually ends up in scientific publications. And that means that people like you and I don't really get to see or hear or read about it. So the combination of these 2 documentaries, as well as this book, is going to have a massive impact on conservation, and it really has had an influence on the way that human-wildlife conflict in that area is being managed. It's a great book with some incredible images. It shows research and behavioral ecology and home ranges and dynamics of these desert-adapted lion populations in the northern Namib. And it's particularly of interest to me because this is where we're going to be spending 4 out of the 11 nights on our Desert Wildlife of Namibia safari. So the Honib Skeleton Coast camp run by Wilderness Safaris is where we end this trip. It's one of the most luxurious camps in the itinerary. It's where we're going to spend a day flying across to the Skeleton Coast, checking out the Cape Seal colonies there, the shipwrecks. And it's just an incredibly expansive, wild and remote area where there are these desert-adapted lions rolling around. If you watch the documentary on desert lions, Vanishing Kings 2, you'll hear about 3 young lionesses who are pretty much on their own at the moment. And chatting to Dr. Stander after the event, he was saying that these lionesses have kind of found a new and remote oasis in amongst the dunes there, and they've been thriving on killing birds. So things like cormorants is what their diet is mainly comprised of at the moment. So it's just an incredible expanse, and to see a lion in this environment is just mind-blowing. Johan was fortunate enough to see a lioness there when he went up last year as part of a recce trip that we did, and so it's a destination that I'm very excited about. So we will be spending 4 nights in an area where Vanishing Kings 2 and 1 was filmed, and where this book is based. So very excited to actually get up there and experience it for myself. Now, the other thing that came through this, and because this book is backed by Wilderness Safaris and the event last week was hosted by them, and because this camp is based in the desert, is that it got me thinking about conservation and photography and tourism and wildlife. And yes, when you travel, you're paying conservation fees, so there is a benefit and everything. But it's an interesting question, and Wilderness Safaris have tagged a kind of a tagline which has been phrased as "purpose is the new luxury," and that got me thinking. And it really, what is your purpose for traveling? what makes you tick? And so I did a bit of a blog post on it, and I asked that question. I mentioned in there what my purpose for this year is going to be. Over and above changing the way that people see the world and creating incredible safari experiences, there's going to be a new element and a new layer to this. And we've started to kind of tick at this layer a little bit in the past with some of our new safaris, like the Wangi Conservation Safari. But I'm going to be traveling with a new purpose this year, and that's my new luxury. And so I ask in this blog, what is your purpose? What is your reason for going on vacation and on photographic safaris? So go and check it out, and keep an eye out on the blog for the book review of Vanishing Kings 2. I will be sharing on that blog post a link to where you can go and order your copy of the book online, and believe me, it is spectacular. If you think that the cover image is something else, you're going to really enjoy it. This is a coffee table book that you'll want to read and not just page through and look at the pretty pictures. So yeah, that's that from my side. Heading off to Mjejane this weekend with the family, which I'm very excited about. Obviously, Mjejane is a place that I've spent a lot of time during my conservation studies and guiding career, and so very much looking forward to getting back to Nakuru Lodge, where we run most of our Mjejane safaris out of, and seeing some of the staff members there that I used to work with a number of years ago. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. You guys all have a great weekend, and do keep an eye out on the blog. Cheers.
Okay guys, there you go. So that's kind of the new layout we're going to be going with. We're going to be sharing these new diaries every single week, every Friday. The guys will still rotate as we host, but you will see each guide in each episode moving forward. Like I mentioned earlier on, it could be a minute, it could be 30 seconds, it could be 10 minutes, but it's an exciting thing for us, more content coming your way, and it gives us another way to show you guys what it is that we do. We love it, we hope you do as well. We'll see you in the next episode. My name is Gerry, I'm from Wild Eye. Have a good one.